Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer in that order. Welcome everyone. Have three sort of sports card data anomalies to share here in this video. Two of them were sent to me by viewers of the channel via email, and then one I saw on social media, and I thought they were all pretty interesting, so I wanted to go over them here and discuss sort of what they mean in the bigger picture, as you know, as far as I know. But before we jump in, I just want to really quickly remind everyone that my boy Jeremy Donson's auction house, Collector Investor Auctions, the grand opening, or the first auction ever, is happening right now. I think I'm posting this video on a Saturday. It ends tomorrow, the following day, Sunday. So if you see this, you still have time to sign up and bid, or if you just want to follow along for fun, that would be great too. I'm a small stakeholder, and believe heavily in this auction house. So yeah, check it out. All right, but on to our sports card data anomalies, and the first one was sent to me by Evan Frazier. Thank you for that, Evan. And it involves this 2000 SP Authentic Tom Brady rookie, which is serial number out of 1250, and this would be one of his better base rookie cards. Not the top. I wouldn't say it's his best base rookie card, but it's definitely up there. Certainly top five, sort of most desired Tom Brady base rookies from 2000. Now, what's interesting about the card? Remember, the serial number is out of 1250. The card has been graded by PSA just over 600 times. Looks like 637 times in total. But it's been graded by Beckett over 1,000 times, 1,019. If you include SGC and CGC, the card has been graded professionally 1,719 times. Let's go back to the card again for a sec. Remember, it's serial numbered out of 1250, yet has been graded over 1,700 times, which breaks down to each copy of the card has been graded, on average 1.4 times. Now, I've seen something like this on really low serial numbered cards before. For example, a 2003 Topps Chrome Gold Refractor LeBron James. That card's serial numbered out of 50, but it's been graded 81 times across the four major grading companies. But I've never seen it on a card with this high of a serial number. This serial number is over 1,000. Now, it's a very, very important card, a very key Tom Brady rookie, but still very, very high serial number to see this many, copies of the card. Now, there's, two obvious explanations, or let's say two explanations for what is potentially going on here. One is just lots and lots and lots of regrade attempts. People crack this out, send it back in, and the companies, at least early on, were not picking up on this. They weren't registering the serial numbers, and so these are just all regrade attempts where the card's getting marked on the pop report. The second explanation is that there are a lot of fakes out there, and some of the fakes are getting by the grading companies. Now, I would say the regrade attempt theory definitely has a lot of validity, especially because a lot of these were Beckett. And for many, many, many years, even just a 0.5 subgrade bump on one subgrade could have massive value, increase on a card, particularly like this. And especially during like the pandemic, when, a BGS 9 versus a BGS 9 with a slightly better subgrade, might be thousands of dollars in difference in value. So I can imagine that a lot of cracking and resubmitting was going on during that time, which certainly helps explain it. But still, it seems quite excessive to me, that many regrade attempts on a single card. If you look at other Tom Brady rookies with similar serial numbers, here's a 2000 Leaf Rookies and Stars. This card's serial numbered out of 1,000. Now, to be fair, this card's not as important as the SP, but it's still a key rookie of his. It's out of 1,000. This card's been graded 169 times by PSA and 154 by Beckett. So something like 350 total across the four major grading companies. That's more in line with what you tend to see on a card numbered out of 1,000. But again, the SP is more important of a card and more valuable of a card, so you would expect more regrade attempts. But again, that's quite excessive. The other theory that I mentioned is that there are a lot of fakes, and there are definitely a lot of fakes of this card out there. But I would have thought that the grading companies would have caught them, but I don't know. Perhaps that helps explain it as well, that maybe some of the fakes got past the graders and into the holders of the major grading companies. So you'll often hear me talk about the power of the pop report, but also very important is the power of the set registry. And this example is a very good and extreme example of that. This was sent to me by Blake Bastian. Hope I got your name right there, but thank you for that, Blake. Really, really interesting one. It involves these two cards, which are 1965 Topps Commons, Sterling Slaughter and Bob Johnson. Chances are everyone watching has never heard of either of these players, and I have not heard of them either. Again, these are commons from 1965 Topps. Neither of these are short prints. Neither of these are high numbers. These two cards should be worth essentially the same. And as ungraded cards, they are. In this example, both of them are PSA Mint 9. So we're going to start with the Sterling Slaughter, the card on the left. That card is a pop 45, and there are 5 copies higher, meaning there's 45 9s that exist, and there are 5 copies of the card in a PSA 10. The Bob Johnson is very, very similar. It's a pop 39 with 1 higher, meaning there are 39 9s and only 1 10. So looking at it side by side, the pop counts are pretty close. The Bob Johnson's a tiny bit rare and has a slightly fewer copies higher. So if you were just considering supply and demand rules, you would say probably guess these cards are fairly close in price, but the Bob Johnson is probably worth a little bit more because it's just a little bit harder to obtain. Now, both of these cards got put up for auction recently in PSA 9s, and remember, demand-wise, these cards should be the same. They're both commons from 1965 with nothing else to it. And supply-wise, the Bob Johnson should have a slight edge. They should be quite close, but the Bob Johnson should have a slight edge. The Bob Johnson sold for $103.50. The Sterling Slaughter sold for almost 9 times that, $879.25. Now, both of these auctions were run by the exact same seller. They ended on the exact same day. They were both in auction, and they ended right around the same time. So it's not like one of these auctions was, flukily high or low for some reason. This is what they legitimately went for. So how do you explain that? Again, the Sterling Slaughter's outselling the Bob Johnson by about 9x, despite being very, very similar pop counts. And in fact, if anything, it should have been the reverse. So what exactly happened here? Well, I wasn't, part of the auctions in any way, so I don't know for sure. Perhaps it's something super fluky, like Sterling Slaughter's mother just, really, really wanted the card. Although that seems unlikely, as she would be over 100 years old at this point. But so what probably happened, and Blake actually mentioned this in his email, and I think he's almost surely right, is I've seen this sort of thing happen plenty of times before. What probably happened is the power of the set registry, and what I mean by that is there were multiple bidders who were putting together a 1965 top set in an ultra high grade, mainly to increase the value of their set on the PSA set registry. And the way the set registry works is every time you get a card in a high grade, you enter it into the set registry, and it increases the overall score of your set, and you can compete against everybody and see where your set ranks in the world as being one of the nicest, in this case 65 top sets that exist. And so probably in this case there were multiple bidders who just all randomly already owned the Bob Johnson in a PSA 9, but they did not own the Sterling Slaughter in a PSA 9. So in this particular case, the 2 or 3 or 4 bidders, or however many it was, all were desperately trying to get this Sterling Slaughter, because probably there's very few opportunities to pick up a Sterling Slaughter in a PSA 9. This is one of the very, very few, so they're willing to overpay and bid each other up, whereas they all already owned the Bob Johnson, so nobody was fighting for that card. And that something like that is probably what happened here. Now, you can think the PSA set registry is super cool, or you can think it's ridiculously silly. I know people on both ends of that spectrum. I tend to think it's pretty cool. I almost never use it for myself. But yeah, I do think it's kind of a fun, way to see where your stuff ranks in the world. If that's important to you, to some it is, to some it isn't. But a lot of people, really, really love it. And getting even a common in a PSA 9 can really increase the score of your set and improve your ranking or whatever. So a lot of people play that game and really value it. And that's, I think, what happened here. All right, and the last anomaly I saw, I think it was on Reddit a few weeks ago, and I apologize that I'm not crediting the person who posted it because I couldn't find it. I don't remember exactly where I saw it, but it has to do with Victor Wembanyama and the number of cards he has graded. Now, Wembanyama, of course, was the number 1 draft pick last year. He won Rookie of the Year, and he looks like an absolute beast early into his, 1 year into his career here. He has had over almost 200,000 cards graded, 191,787 Victor Wembanyama cards have been graded by PSA only to date. Now, that is an insane number for one player in 1 year. To put that into perspective, there have only been 155,000 Giannis Antetokounmpo cards ever graded. And Giannis Antetokounmpo's first year was in 2013. He's been around 11 seasons and has been a major star in the league for most of that time. So 1 year of Victor Wembanyama already has more cards graded than 11 years of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Wembanyama also has more cards graded than Steph Curry, whose rookie cards are from 2009. Steph Curry has had 170,000 cards graded ever across all years. Wembanyama in 1 year has already surpassed Giannis Antetokounmpo and Steph Curry. I mean, think about that for just a second. Now, it's certainly fair to point out that Giannis's rookie is 2013 and Steph Curry's rookie is 2009. both of those years were not mass-produced years the way 2023 is. And, you know, a very high percentage of cards graded are rookie cards. So Curry and Giannis just don't have as many rookie cards that would potentially be graded. And that certainly plays a part here, but still, like, in 1 year, Wembanyama already has more cards graded than Steph Curry. So we're not talking about some, you know, second-tier star. Steph Curry, all-time great, obviously. Doesn't that just seem pretty amazing? Now, if you go back to, like, the junk wax era, let's take Shaquille O'Neal as our comp. Shaq still has more cards graded than Wembanyama, but not by much, only about 50% higher. 1992 is one of the most overproduced years of all time. And all his rookies get graded, you know, many times. So he's at about 300,000. Wembanyama's at about 200,000. Remember, Shaq, this is across all years. So this is 30 years worth of Shaq cards, only is 50% more than 1 year worth of Wembanyama cards. Taking it one step further, a very high percentage of Wembanyama cards are graded 10s, gem mint, whereas a smaller percentage of the Shaqs are graded 10 gem mint. So if you look at the Wembanyama, the top two graded Wembanyama cards, just looking at PSA 10s, are the Panini Prizm and the Topps Now Draft. Those two combined have close to 24,000 PSA 10s in existence. That's more than all PSA 10s for all Shaquille O'Neal rookie cards from 1992 across all brands, which include, I don't know, the 10 or so shown here, but also another 20-ish or so below it. So there's already more PSA 10s from two Victor Wembanyama rookie cards than all of Shaquille O'Neal rookie cards combined. So there's multiple ways to read this one. You know, the more pessimistic or negative view would be that this is junk wax era 2.0, or it's you know, the junk slab era, as many people have called it. And I think there's, you know, obviously validity to that. So many cards out there today, so many variations and parallels out there, and so many cards are being graded that are not, you know, I don't want to say they're not worthy, because if it's for your personal collection, any card's worthy of being graded if you want it. But from a financial standpoint, there's so many cards being graded that it doesn't make sense to grade. That, you know, the hobby is just so overloaded with different cards and different graded cards. And, you know, supply and demand rules will say that this is not really sustainable. A more optimistic viewpoint, or, you know, positive approach, would be that this is a sign that the hobby is growing. And you know, back in 1992, there was you know, the hobby was at one of its peaks. And that's why we saw so many cards produced, and there's, you know, so many cards graded from those years. And there was just so much interest in cards. Whereas in the, you know, in the early 2000s and the Steph Curry and the Giannis years, there just wasn't much interest in sports cards overall. So they just didn't produce a whole lot to meet the interest. And that's why those numbers are much lower. Whereas today, 2023, there's, you know, again, massive interest. And that's why we're seeing, you know, massive amounts of cards. I've said it before, you know, today, like in 2024 as a dealer, clearly the hobby is much bigger today than it was in, say, 2018. And I use 2018 arbitrarily, but I picked it because it's before the price boom. So sort of ignoring the pandemic boom and the subsequent fall, clearly the hobby has grown significantly since then, 2018. And it's, you know, it has not shown steady downwards trends for a couple of years now. It's not like we're in some free fall. It's been pretty steady, maybe even growing over the last couple of years. And you know, maybe this is a good sign for the hobby overall. I've predicted a number of times that I thought grading would slow down. It didn't quite make sense to me why so many cards are being graded, but that's proven to be completely wrong. It continues to break records every single month. And yeah, you know, maybe the optimistic approach has some validity as well, in that this is truly a sign that the hobby is growing and just a lot more interest overall. But that's it for the 3 sports card anomalies here. Would love to hear people's opinions on any of these. Did I miss something on any of these? I'm sure I did. But as always, really appreciate everyone watching, and see you again next time. Thanks, everyone.